median, fissure. Running down the back side of the cord, posterior, median,
fissure.
sulcus. Both are grooves, both about the same depth. For whatever reason, the one in front's fissure, the one in back is sulcus. And then you'll see the cord starts out pretty narrow, then it widens right about here, and that is called cervical enlargement. Narrows again as you go through the thoracic region because all the nerves coming off just serve the trunk. Whereas the nerves coming off the cervical region serve part of the trunk up here, but also the upper limbs. So you have a lot more neurons in there. Then you hit the lumbar region, it widens again. That's called lumbar enlargement. And you have extra neurons in there to serve not just the pelvic region, but also lower limbs. And then sacral region at the end, which tapers into this little triangular tip, conus medullaris. And then the fibrous connective tissue that comes straight down to the coccyx. It's covered in pia. Anchors the bottom of the cord to the coccyx. Phylum terminale. Yeah. And then all of the nerve roots and nerves that are around the phylum terminale. Translates to horsetail, all of this. Cauda equina. What's cauda? Equina? There you go. And then you have plexuses, cervical plexus, brachial plexus. And the brachial plexus is actually primarily cervical spinal cord regions. So you can take C1 through C8, and roughly the top half forms the cervical plexus. Roughly the bottom half forms the brachial plexus. So why do they call it brachial if it's coming off the cervical region? Because there is no brachial region to the cord, just cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral. Brachial because, for the most part, where do all these nerves go? Arm, yeah, upper limbs. And then down here, lumbar plexus, and then sacral plexus. And then coming off the lumbar plexus, you have the femoral nerve. You can see it here and here. And then coming off the sacral plexus, the sciatic nerve right here. I don't show any more of it than that. But it would come out from behind the bone here, down the posterior side of the thigh. Femoral takes care of the anterior side of the thigh. So then to apply that to function, which nerve would innervate muscles of the anterior thigh and receive sensory input from the anterior thigh? Femoral. And posterior thigh? Sciatic. The only other thing you could find on here are some of these cranial nerves. And again, they have these labeled as cranial nerve 1. It's really not. What is this structure here? Which is really, really big on the sheep brain.
Olfactory bulb.
Olfactory bulbs. And then here, these nerves, optic nerves. And then when they come together, what do they form? Optic chiasm or chiasma. And that's where half of the information crosses to the other side, half stays on the same side. So half contralateral, half ipsilateral. The next one, right here, coming out just above the pons, brains, from the midbrain region. Goes to the eyes, innervates 4 of the 6 extrinsic eye muscles. Oculomotor. And then 4. That is trochlear. And which muscle does it innervate?
Oblique.
The muscle that uses the trochlea. Superior oblique. And then 5 is on the sides of the pons, and it's pretty big. Trigeminal. 6. Abducens, and what does it innervate?
The lateral muscle of the eye.
Lateral rectus. And then 7. Now we're getting over on the sides of the pons. Facial. And then right next to it, 8.
Vestibulocochlear.
Vestibulocochlear. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, pretty much going in order. And then 9 and 10 are back up here.
Would you use
I gotta move this over. This is 12.
I mean, would you use a different model for that?
No, they're all good.
Okay.
So here's 9 and 10, and 9 is
Glossopharyngeal.
glossopharyngeal, 10,
Vagus.
vagus, and then we go down a little further for accessory, which they show on this side. So all of this is accessory. It's very broad. And then remember, you're going down in sequence, but then 12 you have to come back up, and it's right in front of the olives of the medulla. So the olive's a good landmark. In front of it is 12, behind it is 9 and 10. So it goes 9, 10, 11, then back up to 12. They're showing you sympathetic chain ganglia here, which will cover autonomic nervous system, so that won't be on the exam. That's later. I guess that's about it. Okay. Not so great for cranial nerves. They're not showing all of them, and they're not that clear. Everything else is fine, though, the peripheral system and the cord. So this sulcus down the middle. Anterior median fissure. Plexus from here to here. Lumbar. The one nerve you need to know coming off of lumbar plexus. Femoral comes out right anterior to the head of the femur. And then this plexus down here.
Sciatic.
Sacral and the big nerve coming off.
Sciatic.
And it splits into
Tibial. And common fibular.
And common fibular. So tibial is going to continue down. Common fibular is going to wrap around the knee towards the lateral side of the leg and then send off some branches. Here it is again. So sciatic. It's going to come down. It's now behind the femur. We can't see it. It's going to split. And this branch coming out here is common fibular, right? And which is associated with the fibula, outer leg, lateral. And then here's the branch that continues straight down off sciatic, tibial. Tibial, over here, common fibular. Two different numbers here for two different branches of common fibular. And you don't need to know the branches. Up here, this one. Thumb side.
Radial.
Radial. Other side, pinky side.
Ulnar.
In between.
Medial.
Median. And then out here. Innervates biceps brachii. Musculocutaneous. Some of these should ring a bell from the muscle table.
Nobody wants to think about that.
No, what? It was on there? This plexus up here.
Cervical.
And the one nerve you need to know off cervical, which I don't see here. Oh, this is probably it right here. It should drop all the way down into here. Phrenic. And then this plexus? Brachial. And from that you need to know musculocutaneous, median, ulnar, radial. How about this little guy right here? Pituitary. What's the little connecting stalk that joins it to the hypothalamus?
Infundibulum.
Infundibulum. This part of the brainstem. Pons. Up here. Midbrain. How about the roof of the midbrain, which only looks like a roof if we hold it like this? Tectum. And the bumps that form the tectum. Corpora quadrigemina. The top two.
Superior clavicular.
Bottom two.
Inferior clavicular.
Okay. And this structure central to it, right above, it's like a fifth bump. Above and midline. Pineal gland. So you have the centrally located pineal, and then the two superior colliculi, and then the two inferior colliculi. And right here, posterior commissure, good. The dark blue, fornix. Here it's white. Oh no, wait, that's caudate, sorry. This is caudate. They don't show fornix on this side. So it's just right here. This?
Corpus callosum.
Corpus callosum. Here they're showing some arachnoid. And then the dural fold. And what dural fold is this right here? It's going all the way through between the two hemispheres. That's falx cerebri right here. And then what sinus is it enclosing?
Superior sagittal.
Superior sagittal sinus. How about this groove here? Parieto-occipital sulcus. Here's another dural sinus. This one's running in the horizontal plane, kind of around the back, transverse. How about this dural fold right here? Tentorium cerebelli. This open space back in here. Fourth ventricle, yeah. And then this little canal.
Mesencephalic aqueduct.
Mesencephalic aqueduct or cerebral aqueduct. How about this part of the midbrain? So the roof is tectum, the rest of it is tegmentum. This part of the brainstem down here, medulla. This open space coming down the cord.
Central canal.
The white here within the green.
Arbor vitae.
Arbor vitae. And the little equivalent of gyri. Folia. This region. This region.
Thalamus.
This little connecting piece of tissue that goes through the third ventricle. Intermediate mass or interthalamic adhesion. Here's another band of commissural fibers here. Anterior commissure. And then back here, posterior commissure. And then up here, corpus callosum. Those are your three bands of commissural fibers. What lobe is this? Frontal. The red stuff, blood vessels, capillaries.
Or choroid plexus.
Choroid plexus. I'm assuming this is the partition between the lateral ventricles.
Septum
Pellucidum. What part of the lateral ventricle is back here?
Posterior
Okay. And what lobe is it in? Occipital. And this part of the lateral ventricle? Inferior horn. Which lobe? Temporal. And up here?
Anterior horn.
Anterior horn in the frontal. And then sort of the body of the lateral ventricle would be in the parietal lobe. And then running just under and lateral to the lateral ventricle. A nucleus, C-shaped like the ventricle. Fornix is white matter. This isn't nucleus. It's part of the basal nucleus. Caudate. So here's the head, the body, the tail of the caudate. And so sometimes with the right section, you can catch tail and head at the same time. This is hippocampus, this blue structure there. Oh, how about this? Hole. There's a hole extending between the third ventricle and the lateral. Interventricular frame. How about the gyrus just above corpus callosum, which I think this is what they're trying to show. You can show it on this. Just the same. Gyrus just above corpus callosum. Limbic system. Starts with a C. Cingulate gyrus. Corpus callosum. And the white matter here? Fornix. Yeah. And they're showing the hole again.
Interventricular.
And they're showing that little connecting tissue again. Right? And then so all of this is thalamus, and then down here, hypothalamus, and this guy.
Pituitary
And the
gland.
little connecting stalk,
Infundibulum.
infundibulum, is part of the brainstem.
Pons.
Pons up here.
Midbrain.
Midbrain, this part of it. Roof. Tectum, and this part of it. Tegmentum, and then the canal separating them.
Fourth ventricle.
Canal.
Oh, central.
Mesencephalic aqueduct or cerebral aqueduct. Gland. Pineal. And then the upper of the two bumps.
Superior.
And the bottom.
Inferior.
And all four together.
Corpora quadrigemina.
Corpora quadrigemina. This open space in here.
Fourth ventricle.
Mhm. We can do cranial nerves. So if we start with the olive, which is this pink one right here, I don't know what maybe that's better. If you are anterior to it, 12. Posterior to it on top first. 9, and then 10, and then this. This is all 11, and then you come back up to 12. And let's start laterally back here. So we're now before 9, going backwards. 8. What's the name?
Vestibulocochlear.
Vestibulocochlear. And right next to it, little medial, facial, and the next one, abducens. And then you go back out here, and it's really big, right in the middle of the pons on the side. Trigeminal. How many branches does it have? Main branches?
3.
3. V1, V2, V3. And then if we follow it back up, we got this little guy. So we just did 5, we're going backwards. 4 is trochlear. And then 3, oculomotor. And 2,
optic.
just a little bit, just where it's cut at the optic chiasm. And then we're using this for 1, even though it's not.
Olfactory bulb.
Olfactory bulb. These gyri here belong to a lobe. Insula. All this white matter. If we were a little deeper, we would run into part of the basal nucleus, but this is a little bit above it. Internal capsule. It's all internal capsule. And this is part of the basal nucleus. It's the C-shaped. Here's the head of it up here, then the body, and it's coming around. Caudate. So we can see insula, we can see internal capsule, we can see caudate, but we can't see the lentiform nucleus inside. We need the other model for that. Lots of choroid plexus here. That's about it. What are these white structures back here? Those are the cerebellar peduncles, exactly. So on the outside again?
Internal capsule.
These guys, ridges. Insular. And then the white is kind of striated. See that's internal. Yeah, it's kind of going on all different directions. It gives rise to corona radiata. So when they're all kind of bundled together, it's internal capsule. Then the fibers start to spread out. Then it's corona radiata. And then caudate again. And the white.
Corpuscle.
Fornix. Mm-hmm. And about back here. So the fifth central bump, right above the midbrain.
Pineal.
And then these two bumps, all four of them, let's say.
Corpora
Corpora quadrigemina. Tectum, tegmentum, pons, medulla, pituitary, optic chiasm.
Can we see mammillary bodies on any of those?
Right here, the white. So it's kind of between pituitary and the midbrain over here, right between the two. About this white matter, it's like a pillar on the side of the midbrain. Cerebral peduncle. So a big band of axons running from the cerebrum to the brainstem. And then you can see the transverse fibers of the pons. And all of those are going to run through the middle cerebellar peduncle back to the cerebellum. And then basically just the bottom portion of this is the inferior peduncle, and then up here is the superior. Which cranial nerve is coming around from the back here? Mm-hmm. Yep, that's 4. And then 3 is over here, more anterior. And this one? So we're right in the middle of the pons. Big one. Trigeminal. And then you come back down here, more midline. Abducens, and then facial, and then vestibulocochlear. And a lot of these models, including this one, vestibulocochlear looks like 2 nerves. They're actually showing you that the 2 join together, the vestibular and the cochlear. You just call it the one, vestibulocochlear. And then lateral to the olive, the next one is 9, glossopharyngeal, then 10, vagus, and then the one that runs down the cord a little way. Accessory, then come back up to
hypoglossal.
12, hypoglossal. And this pink thing? The olive. Mm-hmm. How about these anterior ridges down the medulla? The pyramids. The pyramids. Was lateral geniculate body on your list? I think it was. That's right here. It's part of the thalamus. Part of the visual system. Okay. The structure. Falx cerebri, the blue. Superior sagittal sinus, the blue in here. Inferior sagittal sinus, the blue out here.
Transverse
sinus. And then here where they all come together, it's called the confluence of sinuses. And these guys here? Tentorium cerebelli. And this little piece back here? Falx cerebelli. What layer of dura forms these dural folds? Meningeal layer. All of this down here. Fourth, and then this.
Third. Mesencephalic aqueduct.
Mesencephalic aqueduct. What am I putting the stick through here? It's not a frame.
Intermediate.
It's not a hole.
It's the intermediate mass.
Intermediate mass, interthalamic adhesion, and then all the space around it. Third ventricle. What structure surrounds this part of the third ventricle? Thalamus would be up here. Right where that, hole, not hole is. So down here? Hypothalamus. Right, up here would be thalamus. So collectively, diencephalon surrounds it. All the pink that you see on there, associated with all the ventricles. Choroid plexus. Yes. What part of lateral is this? Inferior horn here.
Anterior horn, posterior horn.
How about this opening right back here?
Intraventricular.
And then you have two lateral apertures up a little higher. So gray matter, right here on the side. Same thing there. Lateral horn. What's in it? Cell bodies of visceral motor, autonomic, which? Sympathetic, parasympathetic, preganglionic, postganglionic. How many neurons does it take to get from the spinal cord to the target of the autonomic nervous system?
Three neurons.
From the cord, not from the brain, from the cord to the target. Two. So this would be the cell body of the first one. Right? And then the second one is completely outside of the cord. So these would be cell bodies of preganglionic, symp or parasymp. Cell bodies of preganglionic sympathetic fibers. Lateral horns belong to the sympathetic nervous system. Here?
Ventral.
So the easiest way to figure out if this is the ventral side or this is the ventral side, look at the roots. The one that has the big bump in it, that's dorsal. This must be ventral root, this must be dorsal root, so this must be the ventral half and this must be the posterior. So this is
Ventral root.
ventral horn, which contains cell bodies of upper or lower motor neurons. Right? Somatic is a 2-neuron chain from brain to target.
Upper.
So if you're getting from the cord to the target, this is the lower motor. This one's going to take you all the way to the muscle. Cell bodies of lower motor neurons. And the nucleus itself can be called somatic motor nucleus. Right? And this would be visceral motor nucleus or autonomic motor nucleus in the lateral horn. Right? So I can ask you to name the nucleus, can ask you to name the neurons that form the nucleus. Lower motor neurons here, preganglionic sympathetic here. This? Dorsal horn. How about the more dorsal part of the dorsal horn? What nucleus is there? Somatic sensory, and then down here, visceral sensory. And all of these yellow and green axons, they belong to which neurons? Start with motor or sensory.
Sensory.
It's all sensory. Right? When you come in through the dorsal root, it's only sensory axons. And then the two colors represent, some of it is somatic sensory, some of it is visceral sensory. And they're showing you in the picture here where each one terminates. So if yellow is somatic, it's a little bit more dorsal. And then if it's visceral, it's a little more anterior. All dorsal horn though. All the white matter out here. Lateral white column. Anteriorly. So all of this. Anterior white column back here. Posterior white column.
Did you call it visceral and dorsal?
Say again?
Can you call it visceral and dorsal, or is it just
Ventral.
anterior?
Do you mean ventral?
Yeah, sorry.
Either way. Yeah.
Okay.
Anterior ventral's good, posterior dorsal's good. The bump again? Here. Dorsal root ganglion contains cell bodies of
Sensor.
it's all sensory. They're all unipolar neurons. These two branches together, their collective name. One is called the gray ramus, one's called the white ramus, but together they are the communicating rami. Rami communicantes, Latin version. And then this one. So this is the dorsal half of the cord. So this is running to the dorsal body wall. And then this is going to curve around. Branches will come off for the lateral body wall, the ventral body wall, upper limbs, lower limbs. So this one comes around like that. Rami communicantes goes into the ventral body cavity. I think that's it on this one. What are all these things attached to this neuron model?
Right.
These are all axon terminals from other neurons. And where they meet up with the membrane of the soma, they're forming what kind of a synapse? Axosomatic synapse. And what's this structure here? The clear, not the brown.
Dendrite.
That's a dendrite. So the synapse between this axon terminal and the dendrite is called
Axodendritic.
axodendritic. And this?
Nucleus.
Nucleus. The blue with the little red dots on it.
Endoplasm.
Ruffiar. Histological name?
Nisselbad.
Somebody's name?
Nisselbad.
Nisselbodies. The new term we're starting to use, chromatophilic substance. Nisselbodies is fine. Some smooth ER, some Golgi, some cytoskeleton neurofilaments. This part of the neuron? Axon, this whole thing. And then the membrane of the axon? Axolemma. This triangular or cone-shaped region here? Axon hillock. You can't really see it on here. Postsynaptic membrane. And this? Presynaptic membrane, and what process is being depicted here?
Exocytosis.
Exocytosis.